and for the support and the benefit of the sector. There is a work that needs to be done in first developing the knowledge that is then going to provide us with those technologies. And that is expressed through scientific publications, which would also be, in some cases, be reviewed by colleagues and peers, both here and internationally. And what we are picking up, Chair, which is encouraging, is that the ARC has managed to maintain an upward trajectory in this regard of knowledge generation through publications, which is a very good indicator of the efforts of our researchers. At a certain stage during the lockdown period, we were under the impression that perhaps the uptick is a factor of the fact that perhaps scientists have more time to mine already existing data, and that is why we are seeing an increase in the number of publications during that time. But this trajectory, as you can see, Chairperson, up to the last year that we have just closed, has been upwards. Locally, we are doing a bit of work that is focused really on strengthening some of the partnerships that are crucial to the work of the ARC. And these include across the board, across the different elements, whether we're talking government departments, whether we're talking universities, other science councils, and industry players. And this has paid off, Chairperson, in the work of the ARC and has assisted us in terms of advancing a number of our projects for the benefit of the agricultural sector. Internationally, as I said in my intro, Chair, we are doing a lot of work internationally, but we have changed our focus for the short to medium term to improve and strengthen our presence within the African continent. And this is also paying off, Chairperson. Members will recall that the work that we did of producing the drought-tolerant maize cultivars recently was actually work that was done with several partners within the African continent. And those kind of efforts are the ones that actually do pay off for us. The most recent one of these was with the Luana University in Malawi, which we concluded, Chairperson, just about a week and a half or so ago, which we were able to do virtually. Again, to advance the work of the ARC and learn from each other, including a lot of lessons that the Malawians have when it comes to smallholder agricultural development. When we look at our internal environment, just expanding on that, one of the most important areas of our work is, of course, human capital development. And when we look at our people, the ARC has developed an employer value proposition, which has some critical elements looking at talent management, learning and development, performance management, employer branding. What we have done on the aspect of employee engagement is that we have rebranded this into an initiative which we call Slalele, which emphasizes the commitment by the leadership of the ARC to actually engage and listen more to the needs and requirements of our staff, which is very critical in this area. It's therefore something that gives us a lot of pride that we, in the last year, then Chairperson got certified by the Top Employers Institute as a top employer, where our processes, policies, and procedures are open to external auditors to review how the ARC performs in the area of human capital management. And that process has yielded positive results, resulting in us being certified by the Top Employers Institute. The biggest challenge is now to make sure that, of course, we maintain that certification, Chairperson. When it comes to research and innovation, which benefits a lot from the top-level human capital management, and I must also mention, while we talk about this, Chairperson—
10 minutes remaining. 10 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Chair. We have elevated human capital management as one of our, in fact, to the top of our strategic risk register, because it's important that we attract and retain the best skills that we can have as an organization in order to drive the important research work that we are reflecting on the right side of the slide from the different areas of research. Importantly, Chair, is the Chairperson of Council touched on it, is that in the last year, we concluded the institutional review process, which is a process that is conducted once every year, once every 5 years. Because the ARC is also a science council, this is a process that is managed through the Department of Science and Innovation. And that process has actually provided us with a set of very strategic and high-level recommendations, which we have gone to break down into an implementation plan working with our council. And that is what we are seized with now in order to assist the ARC to be the best institution that it can be from the areas that are reflected on the slide. Chairperson, previously the ARC was asked to share examples of actual areas where its work is being conducted. And that's what this next couple of slides is aimed at doing, just to provide the ARC, the committee with a view of the specific areas for the different indicators that are going to be reflected in the APP, where some of the work is going to be taking place during this year. It is not, Chairperson, a reflection of where the ARC has been in the past, because this is just a snapshot of the APP. However, in different areas, the ARC has been working, even those that are not showing here. And some of the areas will receive emphasis also beyond the APP or the period that is covered by the APP. Chairperson, we have a number of strategic initiatives, and the Chairperson touched on the foot and mouth disease vaccine production facility, which is one of our key projects that we are driving. Chairperson will recall that the country has been suffering from unavailability of the FMD vaccine and importing it from Botswana for a while. And the work that we have done now is going to assist us to be able to have this vaccine produced at home. We've already made 20,000 doses available to the department, and we have sufficient antigen to also produce 18,000 vaccines, but we can't bottle those because the vaccine has limited shelf life, but we've already made 20,000 available. We are doing a lot of work from an ICT perspective, modernizing the ARC internally and making sure that it's able to respond to all the challenges that it has. The Chairperson has also touched on the work that we are doing in alternative energy by the installation of some of the infrastructure like solar panels in different campuses. And we have a timeline that we are looking at that's going to assist us to be able to make these investments. Other projects of importance that I can mention, Chairperson, besides what the Chair, we talked about on the institutional review is the work that we are doing in really taking a more aggressive approach in terms of commercializing the intellectual property of the ARC, making sure that we get the best value that we can, and in terms of creating value out of the IP. And this strategy allows us to look at other elements beyond just the IP as well. It helps us to look at our infrastructure as well to see what sort of benefits we can be able to derive from that perspective. We are doing a lot of work, Chair, without going into detail for everything. I think there will be an opportunity during the question and answer to reflect more on some of these areas, because I have already touched on the agriculture and agro-processing master plan, as well as the work that we are doing from a partnership perspective in line with our long-term ARC Vision 2050. Chairperson, I have my CFO on the line, but in the interest of time, I will just reflect on this slide to say that this is...
We still have time for the CFO, so you can hand over to...
Okay. CFO, can you please come through?
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair. So we have tried to capture 3 slides on one, Chairperson, to discuss all the financial aspects of the APP. So on the top, you will see that we've put down all the financial strategy that we are looking at going forward, to say that there hasn't been any significant increase in the parliamentary grant over the MTF period. In fact, the DSI grant would probably come to an end in 23-24. Those are all indications with our discussions with the Department of Science and Innovation. We are quite in constant discussions with our mother department to see where we can increase the external income. Suffice it to say that we've entered into a substantial SLA with the department, and we are working more closely with them than we have been in the past couple of years. And I think that in the 23-24 year and going forward, we will unlock a lot of funding for research in within different branches of DELRED. With regards to costs and personnel costs, Chairperson, the ARC still is under extreme pressure. We have undertaken an organizational design review exercise, which has just kicked off in the last couple of weeks. We intend to get the results of that study before the middle of this financial year. That's well before September. A big strain will obviously be on the budget line when it comes to capex. The CEO did mention that, apart from the interim measures that we're putting into place, we are going to start with the build program for the new facility for the FMD to house the FMD program. It will be a multi-year program. We're looking at a 36-month build program. The design phase is almost complete, and we intend spending monies on that from June of this year. That will obviously mean that all the monies that we've received from National Treasury and sitting on our balance sheet in the amount of about 460 million will now start being consumed. We are budgeting for a break-even budget for the next 3 years over the MTEF. For the 2023 year, although the forecast is showing 0 there, I'm glad to announce that we will probably end up with a surplus. We don't have the final numbers yet. We are busy preparing the draft financials for the AG to start the audit by the end of May. But all indications are that we will end up with a surplus of probably 50 million plus, just depending on what accruals still need to go through. With regards to the governance, Chairperson, we have been working quite hard at the audit improvement plan to ensure that the qualifications that we received, the qualification paragraphs that we received from the AG last year do not repeat themselves. In that regard, there are 2 major issues. The one was around our fixed asset register, the completeness of the fixed asset register, as well as the fact that we had certain land portions that were still in the name of the Department of Agriculture sitting on our balance sheet. In the name of the Department of Public Works and in Infrastructure. So we are engaging with the department to do the transfers of the land portions to the ARC. And the second one was around the disclosure of irregular expenditure and the condemnation of that. And we are in the process of finalizing on those issues as well, Chairperson. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, we've got our condensed income statements to show what we expect to do over the next 3 years with regards to the ARC. We've left the personnel and operating costs as per the original budget, but obviously those will be refined in the outer years as the outcome of the OD exercises and other programs unfold. Included, you will see there is the capital line, and that all talks to the expenditure that we hope to do for the FMD facility. We will draw down on the 400 million rand that's sitting on the monies that we received from Treasury for the FMD facility. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let us welcome the presentation, honorable members from the ARC, Chairperson and the CEO, as well as the CFO. We will now, honorable members, take the presentation from OBP. Then we'll open the session for comments and questions of clarity on both presentations of ARC and OBP. OBP, welcome, and you may proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Portfolio Committee members, representatives from the department and entities. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. The APP we're presenting this afternoon, by and large, is in alignment with the goals that we had set at the beginning of the medium-term strategic framework and or period, Chair. With the exception that we have in order to streamline the processes and to tighten the controls in our business environment, we have added at least 30 new indicators, of which the majority are in our optimized business processes as well as our capable ethical and developmental organization. Chair, production in the OBP still remains the biggest challenge for us. We are currently in the process of discussions for contract manufacturing with a private sector company to assist us in production until, as we had previously reported, until such time that our freeze dryer has been commissioned and our vector-proof facility, which is construction should be completed by at least July. So we are in negotiations. In the past year, we have seen an improvement in our stakeholder relationships, and there have been some positive outcomes in that regard. We have embarked on a organizational design process where we've to date completed the job evaluation and benchmarking exercise. The next step is the matching and placement. This year has also seen a review and approval of our finance policies, because those had a lot of them had last been reviewed in 2013 to 2018. Our challenges are water and electricity, and the board is currently in discussion in those aspects. GMP being I guess the bugbear for OBP over the last few years since 2014. The board had, at the end of March 2022, the board had identified 5 key areas that management needed to attend to as a matter of urgency in order to address this matter. I can report, Chair, that currently we are able to recommence the GMP project, albeit running parallel processes with on the one hand continuing with GMP, and on the other hand finalizing the other aspects, including the litigation. Chair, with those comments, I'd like to hand over to our CEO to report on the APP for the 2023-24 financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chairperson. Honorable members, colleagues from the department and other entities, good afternoon. Can I just confirm if my screen is visible to the rest of the screens? Can I confirm that before I proceed? Can I just confirm if my screen is visible? I'm trying to share the screen. Maybe the secretary can assist.
It's visible.
It is visible. Thanks a lot. Honorable Chair and honorable members, thanks a lot for the opportunity. The Chair has just given an overview of the presentation that I'm about to make. My name is Luvuyo Mabombo. I'm the interim Chief Executive Officer at OBP. Just to say, Chair, our presentation is covering. We tried to speak to our alignment of our annual performance plan to the priorities of the medium-term strategic framework. We're doing a situation and analysis. We're talking to our objectives as an organization, and we're doing a financial overview, and lastly, doing the performance overview. Just from an MTSF perspective, we've identified our role within the three priorities of the medium-term strategic framework. The first one being us contributing to building an ethical and developmental state. That priority we do it, we've actually drawn into our annual performance plan in terms of the outcomes, the role that the organization plays in building ethical and developmental state. With respect to outcome number 3, which is education, skills, and health, we work together with universities, the National Research Foundation, in building skills around the postdoctoral students that come and join us as an organization. We've got a target on that, and we work towards that. And lastly, with respect to our priority number 7, Chair, the work that we do as OPP has always found interest within, particularly the continent. In the middle of 2022, for an example, we hosted the ambassadors from the continent in their contingent, and they showed a big interest in having OPP assisting them in establishing facilities similar to the one we have in their mother countries. So we do that interaction, helped particularly by the department and the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. Chair. So that's where we find our expression in terms of the work we do. We've done, Chair, an analysis of the work we do in terms of the broadly biosecurity space, and we believe that there's 4 elements that are critical in the biosecurity environment. Frankly, the whole issue around strengthening our South Africa's animal health, animal vaccine traceability system. Secondly, Chair, we've identified the role that regulation needs to play in managing unregistered vaccines is a critical issue that affects us as a business. Vaccination coverage within communities, Chair, is one of the big challenges that is facing our country. If one looks at some of the outbreaks of the African horse sickness, which is a topical issue within our animal health industry, some of those challenges that are faced within the communal areas where unfortunately coverage of vaccination is not happening in there. And we're working together with the department and the veterinary services in trying to see how we can best attend to that. And lastly, Chair, of course, the work that the regulator in terms of Act 36 becomes very critical in the nature of the work that we're doing. We've analyzed our environment, Chair, and we believe that there's 7 key aspects that affect the work that we do in terms of situational analysis. Most of these, Chair, we've identified them as being very historical in the work that we do. We've neglected planned and preventative maintenance as a business. That is, of course, also one of the areas that affect the nature of the work that we do is a lack of investment in terms of the manufacturing technologies, the latest technologies that are necessary in the space that we're working on. Customer centricity, Chair, we have not invested a lot in ensuring that the business itself focuses on the customers, and we're working towards that. The responses, I'll just say a slide with the committee about the responses to some of these challenges that we've identified as part and parcel of our operational environment. The next item that we're identifying, Chair, is the time it takes from our research work in research and development work into producing a product. One of the interventions that we've made, Chair, in 2022, 2023 was investing in one of the very few facilities in the continent, which is the vector protected facility, which is key in ensuring that a vaccine that has been produced is efficacious in terms of the targeted animals that it's intended to assist. The next item, Chair, that might sound very trivial is the whole issue, and committee members, the whole issue around where do we source our service providers from? Because of the nature of the work that we do, we should be working actually together with the original equipment manufacturers. And we've seen some of the challenges with breaking down of our equipment is a function of us getting a service provider whom we assume that is able to maintain an HVAC, for an example, that he does it perhaps in a smaller manufacturing environment and not used to building, fixing an equipment that actually is probably manufactured somewhere else in the world. And we're trying to make sure that in our procurement or sourcing of our suppliers that we rely more on original equipment manufacturing. We're working on culture, Chair. I think we've reported this in terms of our change management intervention. Culture within the organization it needs to be turned around for us to be responsive. That links back to the customer centricity. And lastly, Chair, because we work within the constraints of the Public Finance Management Act, sometimes from a supply chain management point of view, it affects our ability to be agile as a business that needs to respond to the needs of the customer. Our response, Chair, is focused on 7 big priorities for OBP in the year ahead. Firstly, completing our GMP project, which we started in 2017. Secondly, improving our business processes, investment as a company that is ISO 9001 accredited, investing in customer centricity within the organization, increasing our human capital potential in terms of our capabilities. Partnerships are key, Chair, to the nature of the business that we do, and the Chair of the Board has already spoken about one of the companies that we're engaging with respect to sustainability of vaccines and getting private sector involved in that process. Agility is a key, Chair, and modernization of our systems becomes a very important thing going forward. Just from a governance point of view, Chair, I think this slide is very familiar to the members of the committee that were led by the board that has got that has got the 3 committees to it. One that looks at 4 committees, sorry, Chair. One that looks at audit and risk, research and development, operations, and human resource. That is, of course, led by the Chief Executive Officer with his or her EXCO and the management committee. Chair, we've presented this slide before. This slide tries to summarize what we're doing as OBP. At the bottom right of that slide, we're reflecting what our strategic outcomes, which we've been translated those strategic outcomes for the company into programs for the company. That is sustainable financial growth, optimized business processes, improving customer service, and building a capable and ethical developmental organization. Risks associated with what we've tried to do in this slide, Chair, is to take the strategic outcomes themselves, put what risk do we face with respect to that, and try to talk to the risk mitigation factors that we're implementing as an organization in terms of that. The first one, of course, being as an organization that is committed to ethics, that fraud and corruption needs to be monitored as one of the high risks that we see, and we're implementing strategies to respond to that.
5 minutes remaining. 5 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with that time, I will run straight then to our budget and our actual APP, Chair, in terms of deliverables. This is the budget spread between the 4 programs that I've spoken to, Chair, a bulk of which is continuous business improvement, which is production and sales function that we have within the organization. The next slide is just our income statement, Chair, projected for 2023, 2024, and through the MTF period. If I was to start, Chair, with our output indicators and the outcomes for the year, for 2023, 2024, we intend to increase the number of new products that we're introducing into the market. Of course, firstly, Chair, this business is self-generating income, and we've targeted that we increase our turnover so that we can be able to sustain this business. New technologies that we're introducing in the year under review, which is the year that ended on the 31st March, this was a new indicator, and we're targeted to achieve 2 new technologies, and now we're increasing that by double in the next year. New markets, Chair, our product, it depends on whether or not we've registered with the authorities in new markets, and this year we're targeted that we'll find 2 markets. We will put our registration in 2 markets internationally, and we're increasing those dossiers, Chair, now to 8 in the year ahead. And our intent increasing, Chair, our EBITDA by 6% for the financial year ahead. The volume of doses that we intend supplying to the market, Chair, we intend to increasing that, despite the challenges with the equipment, by the increasing that by 15% as a function of the work that we've done this year in dealing with our equipment, Chair. The next slide, Chair, is just a narration in a quarterly fashion of what we've defined as our annual target. The second program, Chair, program 3.2, which talks to improving business processes. Chair, we intend to increase our production efficiency and improving that in this year, Chair. We had a different calculation of that indicator previously, and the Auditor General commented on that, and we've changed that in percentages term in terms of that efficiency that we intend to achieve. Rolling out, Chair, our GMP project, which is a matter of necessity as a manufacturer of vaccines. We intend to increase that by 35%, the achievement of that roadmap. As I've spoken, Chair, to the vector protected facility that is used in the final stage of development of vaccines, we intend that by July this year, Chair, we would have finished that facility, which will help not only us, but other companies that want to do research and do a final leg of the research on vaccines that they started. The next set of indicators, they are all new indicators that we've put into this program, Chair, which is, we believe that as a manufacturing concern, managing inventory turnover is very critical. To improve the business processes, we need to make sure that we review our standard operating procedures, Chair, including the skills gap that we might be having with respect to our competence within the business. The next program, Chair, is program number 3.3 which is customer service. We have identified, we do annual customer survey, Chair, once in every 3 years. So this year becomes one of that year that we do that customer survey, so that we make sure that whatever we do is in response to our customers' needs. Around customer satisfaction, Chair, we're maintaining that a tolerance of 80% in terms of resolved customer complaints. We want to increase, Chair, the retention of our top 20 customers, Chair, to 80%. Previously, we had kept that at 75%, Chair. New distribution channels to make sure that our vaccines are available across the country, more than the distribution networks that we have. We will be opening 6 new distribution channels, which are a function of us wanting to ensure that there's greater access to our vaccines. Increasing the training of developing farmers, say, in terms of the vaccination and the use of vaccines. We want to double what we did this year, which was 800 farmers, trained farmers annually, to 1,800 in terms of target, Chair. The next slide, Chair, is just breaking down those targets into quarterly performance. The last program that we have, Chair, is that of governance and leadership. Chair would recall that we had spoken about in this current year's APP about policies reviewed.
Thank you. Can you conclude?
Just to conclude, Chair, on this slide around governance and leadership, there's only 3 new outputs that we've identified, Chair, which are intended to ensure that we maintain ethics or elevate ethics, development and leadership within the organization, Chair. Chair, that's in a nutshell. I'll hand over to my chair to do a summary of the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I think I'm covered. I'm not sure if there's any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mamukinosi, and the CEO of OBP and the CFO. Honorable members, will now open the sessions for questions of clarity and comments. Any hands? Akbar Officer.
Agbare voorsitter, baie dankie. I am a farm girl. I grew up on a farm and I lived between different kinds of animals. My father and great-grandfather farmed with those. And Onderstepoort was like an absolute known place. If anything happens, there was always Onderstepoort. Well, I listened to all that was said here this afternoon, but I'm still very, very concerned. We sit out there with people, I can hear the plans, but where was these plans 10 years ago? What were these plans not then utilized and implemented and rolled out? It wasn't. So we sit now with a crisis. We cannot wait for all these beautiful plans that was presented to us to start working. We sit with a crisis where it's the existence of people. I had a man phoning me from the Eastern Cape in the mountains. I could barely hear him. He was 78 years old. He says his only way of transport was a horse going down the mountain. He had 7 horses. All 7 died. There are no veterinary, state veterinary place, an ordinary one nearby where they could find anything from Onderstepoort for African horse disease. The fact of the matter is, if we look at foot and mouth, if we look at all these other knoppiesveldziekte, the blue tongue, whatever, our meat producers out there, or people working with animals, if it's creationally, if it's in whatever way they do it, they all sit with big crises because of Onderstepoort being non-functional, not able to deliver to the demand what they needed to start to keep their animals alive. Apart from that, the crisis in Onderstepoort now affected our herd immunity. The herd immunity is now losing quality. That is going to affect our security, food security for the future. We cannot, as the government, we cannot allow that this situation continues any longer, and we cannot allow this situation to ever happen again. There is absolute no excuse. If it is a question of 10 years, 10 million dosages of blauwtong is needed immediately. The sheep should have already been vaccinated with that a few months ago. The horses was there already last year. There was a crisis. So in my research and talking to people in the past 3-4 months, I couldn't believe what was coming my way. And they have a notion, people have a notion to hear people in government working in these departments. And although I'm new in agriculture, I'm working a long time already, 20 years with things like this. So I plead today that there must be something much faster than a plan on paper. There must be a plan where people can tomorrow phone and find medication, vaccination, whatever, what they need for horses. They cannot continue. We cannot go out and let 200, I think it's about 300 top quality horses, race horses died. Even their owners couldn't get any of these medication. So Chairperson, from my side, I really plead today that Onderstepoort must get their act together, and they must see that farmers and any kind of meat producer, any kind of person handling animals that needs that medication, get that medication as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Honorable Masipa.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to welcome the presentation from both the ARC and the Onderstepoort biological products. I must say that I concur with Honorable Professor, the farm girl. I think you have articulated, the frustrations quite well out there with regards to the delivery of vaccines. And I think earlier I said that, people are saying that they have moved from little vaccines to no vaccines. And that must concern Onderstepoort in terms of the challenges out there. But Chair, let me start with ARC before I go to Onderstepoort. First, I just want to really congratulate ARC for winning the top employer award. I think that's augur well for them in terms of their new plans and going forward and so forth. I think it's a good intentions, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Their contribution, the ARC contribution towards the agriculture and agro-processing master plan. I just want to know, Chair, what are the resources and cost allocation that they have put aside in order to really fulfill this function? And secondly, obviously, as ARC is struggling with generating income, how are they going to really make sure that they are able to sustain themselves while they are really making their own contribution towards this agro-processing, agriculture and agro-processing master plan? Chair, the second question really relates to the FMD facility. We know that this process is 10 years in making. What are the timelines? Because as far as I'm concerned, there are no timelines that were given to us to indicate as to when they will complete this process. Chair, I also want to talk about one of their areas, which is their competency, diagnostic and analytic services. Honorable Professor earlier today, expressed a concern around the issue of water quality. The question for me is, how is ARC helping? Because the water quality has been ongoing problem with regards to farmers, supporting, really making sure that the rivers are clean and all those kind of challenges that we are faced with regards to rivers, that are not having clean water. The last point with regards to, not the second last, the expected drought conditions, because we're facing El Nino in the next year or two. It's predicted that we will have definitely El Nino. So the question, Chair, to ARC is that how are they really contributing in terms of preparedness of farmers, to deal with the drought conditions? We are in an El Nino wet period, but we definitely are going to be faced with a very dry condition in the near future, as predicted. So the question is, how is the ARC really trying to make sure that, farmers are ready and they have got mitigants, plans, and all those kind of, ways of ensuring that they are mitigated against the drought? Coming to OBP, really, I must say that I welcome the message from the chairperson that they are starting to contract the private sector to start manufacturing vaccines. So my question to the chair is, one, are they starting contracting and giving the vaccine strain to the private sector to assist, especially as far as African horse sickness and blue tongue diseases are concerned? Because these are the vaccines that are experiencing a dire shortage in the marketplace. And I know that Ntate earlier indicated that no, there's no problem with the production by private sector. The government is not really stopping the private sector from producing. Yes, we know that private sector are producing vaccines, but we know also that African horse sickness and blue tongue vaccines are the strains that are held by the OBP institution only. And this is the plea that the private sector is asking. We have outsourced our vaccine production as far as FMD is concerned. We are buying from Botswana at the moment. What is it so difficult to just make the vaccine strains available to the private sector to produce on behalf of the farmers? OBP can help enter into some legal obligation between themselves and the private sector, but at the same time, the farmers will be getting vaccine. That's very important. Chair, the next question is, I think Honorable Fesser covered this with regards to really ensuring that, they address the issue of shortage of vaccine, because the CEO was quite articulate in terms of his working relationship with the department to ensure that they address the issues on the ground. That's not what we are feeling. What I must say, Chair, is that the conversation between the agri-sector business leaders is happening, and that is taking place quite effectively. But on the ground, farmers and veterinary doctors are not enjoying that kind of conversation and the support that they need in ensuring that they are able to vaccinate, one, and two, that they are able to communicate with the farmers what is the problems with the vaccine, when the vaccine production is going to be available. So, Chair, the next question really relates to FMD vaccine. You know, like Glenys will say, pick a straw. We know that we're buying vaccines from Botswana. The question is that who is procuring this vaccine? Is it OBP or is it ARC? And what are the prices that they are paying per dose of FMD, and what are they selling those vaccines back to the veterinary services department? If I can get an answer on that one. Chair, there's one question regarding the details around the products that the OBP is mentioning. There are new 4 dossiers, and there are a couple of other dossiers. Can the OBP just provide some little bit of details with regards to what they have sent to the register on those dossiers that they are intending for local supply and for international supply? That would be great. And the CEO mentioned the training of farmers. The question is that who is doing the training for the farmers, and what is the kind of capacity that they are using? Is it outsourced, or is it OBP itself going out to the farmers? Because that's not what we are getting on the ground when we do our oversight. Just going back quickly, Chair, if we don't mind, just the last one. On ARC. ARC budgeted, you know, your free trials, your field trials, your technical reports, your cultivar evaluation, and so forth. Those targets, I see they are lower than the previous achievement. I just want to know why ARC is now really going lower in terms of the targets that they have put for themselves. In comparison, I mean, from 2023 to 2026, those targets are much lower than the previous targets or whatever that was achieved previously. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to pose my questions. It seems the chairperson has left us.
You can appoint me. Let me speak, Shadow Minister.
No, I'll appoint in the Delovoyo to be the chairperson. No, I'm joking.
Are you appointing me? Are you pointing at me to speak?
I don't
or
have
I don't
that.
need permission to speak.
Professor, we give over to you to pick a straw.
Okay, has anybody want to add anything more for today? Otherwise, we adjourn this meeting. No, I cannot do it now.
No, before you adjourn, let me say something, Honorable Professor.
Honorable sir.
Well, thank you so much, Honorable Professor, being a caretaker chairperson. Look, I've just perhaps one question to both the ARC and Onderstepoort. Well, both organizations have very instructive purpose, vision, and missions. For instance, the Onderstepoort, it says its mission purpose is to provide innovative and disruptive solution to animal health. The ARC says its purpose, mission, and vision is to provide research with partners, develop human capital, and foster innovation to support the agricultural sector. Well, for the longest of time, having been a member of this portfolio committee, I never heard of any collaborative partnership between the two institutes. I want to know if there is existing collaborative partnership between the two to meet not so much exclusively unrelated visions, missions, and purposes, but what, from where I'm seated, these organizations' existence are meant to meet common purpose. That's the first question. The second question, linked to the first, is there any collaborative initiative or projects between these institutions with universities and TVET colleges? I have not heard of any in relation to their mission to develop human capital. Thirdly, perhaps this is also linked to the first question. Do they know how many vets are being produced annually by universities and TVET colleges, especially those which specialize with agricultural training? I'm saying this because in our recent oversight in Mpumalanga, we were told there that the province has less than
Oh,
30 veterinary officers. In a province such as the where to do, am I still there?
you are now audible, but we lost some of
Am
your.
I still the Honorable Professor?
Yes, you are.
Can you still hear me?
We can hear you now. I do not know the others, but I can hear you better now. We lost some of your question.
Okay, so I was saying in the province, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. You can continue.
Well, I was saying my interest is to know if there are collaborative initiative or project between these institutes with universities in the production of veterinary officers. Whether do they know how many vets we have in the country? Because our recent experience in Mpumalanga and KZN is that in Mpumalanga, there are less than 30 veterinary officers. In KZN, there are about less than 13 veterinary officers. What is your shared contribution in the production or in the training of veterinary officers so that we're able to deal with animal-related diseases such as rabies, foot and mouth, and many other diseases that members have raised? Lastly, we were told in Mpumalanga that, and this is a repetition of what Honorable Masipa has said, and perhaps yourself, Honorable Chair, the country has got no capacity to produce animal-related vaccines, especially such as foot and mouth vaccine. As a result, we are sourcing these vaccines from Botswana. Is there any capacity? If not, is there any plan in place to ensure that such capacity has been built so that we're able to respond to foot and mouth diseases and other related diseases going forward? Thanks so much.
Thank you, Honorable Sam. Are there any more people that want to, honorable members that wants to ask questions? I cannot see any other hands. Okay, so what happened to our real chair?
Apologies, members. The chair has been kicked out by the system, so he is trying to connect again.
Okay, shall we wait a while?
Sorry.
We shall wait a while then for the chair to be
Yes.
reconnected.
Yes, please.
No other questions? Can we start receiving a response on the questions?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I can go first. Slita McGing from the ARC.
Thank you very much.
Chair, first of all, Honorable Masipa, thank you for the acknowledgement on the top employer accolade. And just to share with the members that for us, it's really, as I indicated also, a demonstration of our commitment to create an environment where we have top performing specialists who can be able to really contribute in taking not only the ARC, but the agricultural sector in this country to the rightful place, which is right at the top. And we are learning a few things through this exercise, and that's why more than anything else, we take it as part of really a process of developing and improving the organization. Then Honorable Masipa talked about the master plan, the agriculture and agro-processing master plan. Really, what we are talking about here is alignment of resources, and I must mention very strongly the benefit that is accruing to us as the ARC through an improved working relationship with the department. We've just concluded a very broad service level agreement with the department where resources are being made available for us to be able to assist in achieving the objectives of the agricultural sector through some of the projects of the department and using the capacity that is available at the ARC. So working very closely together for the mutual benefit of the entities, but also to support the agricultural sector. And as the CFO also mentioned during his piece on the finances, this part actually ensures, the SLA ensures that these activities are properly provided for so that we can be able to deliver on them. On the line, Chairperson, I have my colleague, Dr. Ntabiseng Mutiti, who leads our crop sciences research division, also looks after the research group that does leads our climate change related research. And I have asked her to come through and just comment on some of the issues that Honorable Masipa raised around drought tolerance, drought mitigation, and climate change related issues, Chair, including perhaps just adding a little bit of information about the variations in the targets, particularly for field trials, which are linked to research projects. Dr. Mutiti, if you can please come in.
Thank you very much, CEO. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So let me begin, CEO, with the question that was asked, diagnostic services, the issues and concerns about clean water. And yes, I just okay, thank you. I wanted to just say, while the water quality standards and the guidelines in the country are set by the Department of Water and Sanitation, The ARC, obviously, as an organization with a portfolio on water research within our natural resource and engineering program, we comment on the standards and the determination every time they are published for comment. So we contribute to the determination. In terms of services, we have scientists and technicians who are available to provide these measurements and to determine the quality, but our services are paid for. So we are only able to assist those who are able to pay for our services and who are available on call. And our scientists also interpret these results, and otherwise within the intergovernmental collaboration system, we also support the work of the Department of Water and Sanitation. And then in the different commodity associations, we also have a role to make contributions to resources issues that may arise. For example, in the fruit industry, there is the Fruit Industry Value Chain Roundtable, where there's a specific segment or working group on resources, and in there's issues of water. So we make these contributions at different platforms where we are provided and where we participate, but the general primary mandate remains still with the Department of Water and Sanitation. Thank you. I will go to the point about our field trials and targets, and my colleague who is in risk and planning will also speak to these particular aspects. But we determine our targets based on the research contracts that we have at the beginning of our planning cycle, and also demand-based. So even though we have set this target, if we get more requests for these services, that requests that are higher than what is targeted, we're still able to provide these services. So we just have made this numbers based on the projections that we have. And obviously our projections in terms of the climate outlook is that the La Nina that we have had, or maybe a wet period of say about 4 years, which was probably the first since 1951, is almost coming to an end. There's an expectation that by June, the dry weather will be setting in, perhaps in the western part of the country, but we continue to work with the farmers to provide further projections, even through our newsletter, Umlindi, and other services that we provide. In terms of our preparedness, we continue to raise awareness, we continue to provide information and solutions, and our scientific solutions like drought tolerant research, including heat resistance research and other research services that also deal with issues of limiting the incursion of pests and diseases during these changing, fluctuating climatic conditions. I think we try to be ahead of what the problem would be. We're always working in anticipation, and this is also aligned to our long-term plan in research and development and innovation that is called the ARC Vision 2050. So I suppose, CEO, this time is never enough to share all the information that is available in response to the questions that are raised, but yes, you can always call upon us to provide additional information through yourself, CEO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mtiti, indeed. And members, we probably have some follow-up questions, and we can be able to provide additional information. And I'm now going to move to the issues raised by the Honorable Matthias. And I'm going to start with the one on research partnerships. We do almost all our work in this fashion, exactly in this fashion, in collaborative partnerships with academic institutions and other research councils in South Africa and abroad. And that's why in my presentation, I mentioned our focus in the short to medium term to strengthen or expand on African continental or regional relationships, which we felt in our strategic planning as one area where we can benefit more. And I think I made an example of the most recent one that we concluded with the Longwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources to also tap into the experiences around working with smallholder farmers, etc. But back to the universities locally as well, we work together in co-supervision of students. We publish together, we share research facilities. Some of our scientists also provide services to the university as professors and lecturers. So it's an ecosystem actually that allows this flow of knowledge and capacity across these institutions, which we are constantly improving on a regular basis. And that's why the ARC is also part of the conversations, which touches on the next point that Honorable Matthias had talked about, of increasing the output of animal health professionals that are trained by the country, with the recognition that indeed we do have a shortage as the country. And I think the Veterinary Council will also probably touch on this, that there is a drive in the country to have an additional faculty by one of the universities that will produce animal health professionals. And we're looking at animal health professionals across the spectrum. Of the approximately 3,200 vets in the country, only a fraction of those are employed by the state, about 260. And the University of Pretoria produces about 150 annually. But what you are looking at here is not necessarily the vets that are going to be looking at domestic animals like pets, etc. What we are talking about perhaps now is veterinary or animal health professionals that are focused on large animals and others, not just horses, of course, cattle, goats, sheep, etc. And that is where the training is required, because it's also for professionals in training. It's about what they select to specialize in terms of the interest also, and where in most cases the resources lie. It's not only because we have a very strong animal health portfolio that the ARC is involved here as one of the parties in the discussions on increasing the output of animal health professionals, but also because we house, Chairperson, 8 World Animal Health accredited reference laboratories for some of the diseases, animal diseases of economic importance, which puts us in a very unique position as an organization. And this number is actually, I think we are unique in the sense that it's higher than even some of the developed countries. So we have a role to play in supporting this initiative, and we are involved very much in the discussions around improving the capacity for the country. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think those are the questions that were directed to the ARC.
Thank you, Mama Kenga, CEO of ARC, and the chairperson as well as the CFO for responding to the questions posed by the honorable members. Honorable members, let me apologize for the non-availability of network in Mvezo due to load shedding. I had to once again leave the precinct and drive to the N2 Mtentu village where there's electricity and network availability. But I was also wanting to pose the question, particularly as the DG and the department are still on the platform. Can they be able to respond to the earlier questions which we posed on discussions with the National Treasury regarding research funding in light of the ARC's decreasing parliamentary grant? Secondly, honorable members, can the ARC indicate how it is using its upward trajectory in peer-reviewed scientific publications to attract public, to attract private funding? Thank you. If you can get responses on that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think that question to the department around the funding of the ARC, I can confirm that in terms of our bidding documents for each and every financial year, when we go to National Treasury, and also on an MTF basis, we go together with the ARC to plead the case regarding the ARC. What we have done, which was presented, and I think that the chair might not even had the opportunity just to listen to that part from the ARC, where the department is working very closely with the ARC. We have identified areas of cooperation which are directly funded by the department through an MOU, and those lines are being funded from a departmental point of view to ensure that our research output does not suffer from the ARC. And to date, I think there's a level of semblance of a good working relationship between the department and the ARC, and trying to resolve on the issues that the ARC would be facing from a budget perspective. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members.
May I go, Chair?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. This upward trajectory, the publications with partners and across the world actually assists us to be able to generate the external income and position ourselves for the research contracts that do generate this external income. It allows us to participate in international platforms where the work of the ARC can be recognized, and we have our scientists and chairperson really participating in all the major international platforms and sharing the knowledge that is being generated through the ARC, and that is what benefits us in terms of these publications, in terms of generating the external income and the research contracts that we then use to reinvest in our research initiatives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG, as well as CEO of ARC for the responses. Honorable members, we'll move on to our last presentation by NAMC. Allow me to invite the chairperson as well as the CEO of NAMC to present the APP.
Chair, point of order.
Yes.
OBP did not respond.
Oh, we're just taking ARC. Sorry. Thank you, Honorable Masipa. It's as a result of me losing out on the network earlier. I thought OBP had responded. Okay, let us then afford OBP to respond to the questions.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. It's Renee Kinosi. Honourable Masipa asked a specific question to myself, but I firstly wanted to respond to Honourable Visser's comments. I don't think they were questions, they were mainly comments, and one of the comments she had was, why is it that for 10 years nothing had happened at the OBP? And now we're seeing these beautiful plans coming out, and I just want to highlight the fact that it's exactly because of there being no maintenance, as an example, Honourable Visser, that the OBP today is battling in producing its vaccines, despite the fact that we do now have preventative maintenance plans in place. We are and of course that the CEO had highlighted how in the past service providers through supply chain management had been appointed to come fix our equipment, but the reality is that all our equipment is specialized equipment, and mostly from Europe. And what we're finding is that when we do get the OEMs out now, the equipment had somehow over the years also not only have they broken down due to wear and tear, but also that the maintenance that had been effected on them or to them had not been appropriate. And of course, we now bear the brunt. The operations side of the business as well, or the operational aspects of the business over and above its production, had also been in a state where this current regime, the board and management team, because there was no senior management or executives when we came in, have really had to start familiarizing themselves first with the organization, because most of them were from the private sector, and of course coming from the private sector, because that's where we compete for skills, coming from the private sector into a public sector entity is quite daunting, because in the private sector you can just take money and go and buy something and not have to worry about procurement or prolonged procurement processes, etc. It's not an excuse. Unfortunately, it's just the way it has been, and we've been trying to fix this train whilst it's running, and that has been a challenge in and of itself. Hence, when you look at the strategies, there's a lot of issues that may look operational, but without those, the organization wouldn't be able to function. With regards to Honourable Masipa's question on our negotiations with the private sector, I think it's important to highlight that this is our second attempt at finding a suitable contract manufacturer for the OBP. The first one had failed upon the inspection by Act 36. The site had failed the assessment, and we were unable to use them. The second site, we are in negotiation together with the minister and the representatives from the department to try and find the most suitable solution for the OBP for contract manufacturing. And Honourable Masipa, I must just indicate that we are not giving them any of our strains, but what we have done is identified the top vaccines, 4 or 5 of our top vaccines, including, of course, African horse sickness, blue tongue, Rift Valley fever, etc., for the service provider to assist us in manufacturing on our behalf for a period of time to be determined. Those negotiations are still it's at an infancy stage, mainly because we've had the introductory sessions. It's a service provider we've been talking to since last year, July, and we've had to revive those discussions earlier, about a month ago or so. together with the minister to see how best they can support us. At this point in time, it's still unclear whether they actually will produce, because they've been to our site and they despite the fact that we believe our site is in a state of disarray, they were impressed by the equipment that we had, purely because they use similar equipment in their environment. So at this point in time, whether they will produce or whether they will assist us in getting our plant up and running is still under discussion with them. Chair, I'd like to end there, and perhaps our CEO can, in his response to the other questions, can maybe just also add to any of the issues that I missed on the two areas that I addressed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Luvuyo Mabombi, interim CEO at OBP. Chair, maybe let me start by saying, Chair, I think the point made by Honorable Fesser is one thing that makes us not to sleep at night, Chair. Because this brand OBP globally has been understood to be a brand that produces vaccines that are trusted worldwide. I think that's a point that we confirm, and I think our situation analysis tries to do that, Chair. But Chair, just to say that there's probably the knots within the biosecurity environment are not as tightly knit as they're supposed to be. Let me give a typical example, Chair. We produce African horse sickness vaccine. The only time we hear of the outbreak, because we are not the regulator, it's when horses are dying, which is what happened in the Eastern Cape. And what our response to that was to work with the provincial veterinary office to try and get them the vaccine, which is what we've done, deliver that vaccine to the provincial veterinary office of the Eastern Cape, so that they can be able to see what they can do in the areas outside of where the outbreak has taken place. So we don't see these things proactively, Chair, and I suppose the system can work on that. Maybe as an organization, Chair, our consistent participation in the veterinary working group can enable us to hear these things very much ahead of time when they get reported, and maybe we will seek an invitation into that group just so that we are able to know upfront. So I agree with Honorable Fesser, Chair. Just on Honorable Masipa's, I think the Chair has already spoken about contract manufacturing, which is a generic manufacturing practice anywhere in the world, but intellectual property becomes sacrosanct. I'm making this point, Chair, because we know, I think, between ourselves and the ARC now, that there's a potential litigation that is on the possibility with respect to some of the intellectual property that was stolen at OBP ARC, which is going to come out. So if things were equal, Chair, I mean, contract manufacturing is a standard thing, but you have to protect your IP, which is one of the challenges that we are trying to work around, Chair. In terms of the FMD vaccine, Chair, you asked Honorable Masipa asked the question. OBP is contracted by the department to source for the country FMD vaccine. And the sourcing for us is Botswana at this moment. Of course, that was a stopgap measure because us as a country, we're trying to upscale our FMD vaccine capability, Chair. So what has happened recently is that even the provinces are now directly requesting us to source FMD from Botswana for them. Of course, we look forward to the eminent possibility that ARC will be able to manufacture the FMD vaccine for the country and the continent itself, because I think science tells us that the strains in the FMD vaccine produced by ARC are much more effective than what we get from Botswana. I think this, I'm not a scientist, so the other scientists can be able to comment on that. So that's the process. Just to say on the costing side, Honorable Masipa, I know the committee sometime in 2022 calendar year had asked this question, and we had responded to the question about the costing modality straight to the committee, but we can still retrieve that response and send it back to the committee. The comment, the point that Honorable Masipa had asked about training of farmers, yes, Honorable Masipa, we do that. We drew that through Farmers' Days primarily, so that's where we organize. And that's what we will do as a model going forward. Farmers' Days that we get invited to, especially in the red meat industry. We do that and we go there, we become sponsors, and then we do the training on the vaccines themselves, on the use of the vaccine themselves, Honorable Masipa. So that's the only model we're using for do the training for the farm. We've got evidence, we've got all the farmers that were there because they sign as the registry for the training that we do. Just on the partnership, Honorable Matthias, on the partnership, Honorable Matthias, ARC and OBP have got a memorandum of agreement which facilitates sharing of facilities for research, sharing of technologies. If it was not for the ARC and OBP supporting the ARC, the country would not be having blood vaccines. So it's through that memorandum of agreement that we partner. So we were bound by that. That memorandum of agreement makes provision for a steering committee that makes sure that the deliverables, whether it's research output against that memorandum of agreement, are reported to. In the past, it was not as active as we've done, I think, through the joining of Dr. Makinga, that we've got that scheduled. There's a quarterly meeting, and the two chairs of the both of ARC Council and OBP have committed themselves to meeting at least once a year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So they do that as part and parcel of sealing that agreement. Lastly, on the partnerships which Honorable Matthias said with universities, yes, Honorable Matthias, we contribute. We always have got postdoctoral students from the NRF that we train here on a three-year cycle. But to be specific, we've got technologies that we're producing in partnership with the University of Free State, University of Pretoria, about improving the vaccine that country has on blue tongue, the Northwest University, UKZN, the University of Cape Town, University of the Western Cape. So we partner specifically, just to talk about projects now that are alive and in existence with those institutions of higher learning. Thanks, Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Luvuyo, for the input. Honorable members, we will then move to our next presentation. I see the end of Makinga.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the chairperson of the ARC Council, who requests that she be released chairperson because her battery is dying and she won't be able to stay on the line. Thank you, Chair.
I've had to leave Mvezo to come and sit on the N2 so that I've got audio meeting. I do hope that the honorable members and the guests here can also improvise and accommodate the presentation of NAMC. They've been sitting here and we can afford them also listen to their presentation to present their APPs.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, DG. It's a pleasure to represent our APP. I just want to apologise on behalf of the CEO, who was unable to connect. He's in rural KwaZulu-Natal on a stakeholder visit, so Mr. Skalkberger will do the presentation on his behalf. The role of the NAMC is, in short, to gather intelligence and advise the Minister on agricultural marketing, and obviously look after the affairs of trust and the orderly collection of levies. What we've seen in the global environment has been increasing negative impact on the agri sector with a rising input cost. This has led to increased food prices, which is something that the NAMC monitors. And locally, we've also suffered with obviously the energy crisis, and this has been further exacerbated by the logistics challenges that particularly the players in the fruit industry or the perishable industries has endured with the ports that's not been obviously as efficient as they should be to be world class and competitive. There's a number of obviously risk that we need to be aware of. The latest one, which is being handled by the Department of Agriculture, is the polyphagous shuttle borer pest. That is something that we need to place on our radar. In terms of the NAMC, we have focused the organization to be more impactful, to make a greater impact in terms of the work it does, the research, collaboration, and to make linkages. We've moved away from focusing on the sort of legacy issues and ensuring that we are able to create an environment where we advise the Minister on world-class agricultural practices and policy, which we obviously need to take forward. So in the absence of the CEO, I've got Mr. Skalkberger, and I'm going to hand over to him to handle the presentation. Mr. Skalkberger, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson of the NAMC. Good afternoon, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, all the other people on the platform. My name is Skalkberger. I'm the Senior Manager for Statutory Measures in the NAMC. We have a presentation of about 21 pages. The first 15 pages will be handled by me, and the last 6 pages by our Chief Finance Officer, Irene Matatu. Yes, let's start with the presentation. We as the NAMC, we
have 20 minutes to do all of that.
Thank you, Chairperson. We as the NAMC, we operate in terms of the Marketing of Agricultural Products Act. And this act was amended twice in 1997 and 2001. And for the past 22 years, the act was not amended. There were certain attempts to amend the act, was not successful, and we are in the process of developing a possible new act. Then the functions of the Marketing Act for the NAMC is in Section 9 of the Act. Firstly, we must advise the Minister regarding statutory measures. Regarding statutory measures, about 80% of agricultural production in South Africa is subjected to statutory measures. And then the NAMC do certain investigations And we also run a number of projects like the Agro Processing Master Plan, the National Red Meat Development Program, and the Cassava Project. Yeah, next page, please. We find our strategic mandate in the objectives of the MAP Act. That is in section 2 of the Act. And first of all, the first objective is to increase market access to all market participants. And secondly, to have a more effective agricultural marketing system. Then we focus on export promotion, where levy administrators apply for statutory levies. And it is mainly the horticultural industries doing export promotion. And lastly, the last objective of the Act is to increase the viability of the agricultural sector. Next page, please. This slide, it provides a bird's eye view of what the NAMC is actually doing. First of all, in terms of the Marketing of Agricultural Products Act, we must advise the minister, and it means we are an advisory body. That's the reason why we spend approximately 70% of our budget on salaries. Then secondly, we believe we are a body that is independent, and we try to be a bridge between government and the private sector. And lastly, we try to be with a commentator for agricultural related issues, and to link with media, and maybe also to market our success stories within the NAMC. Lastly, I think we are not very successful with that, but maybe we can improve on that. Next slide, please. This slide shows the linkage between the Agricultural Agro-Processing Master Plan that was developed by the NAMC and the different pillars of the Master Plan. Maybe I can touch on the first one is to create a friendly environment for investment. The second one is pillar 4. Is about food security, to expand production and to create employment opportunities and to transform the sector and so forth. Maybe next slide, please. This is the 3 focus areas for the NAMC. The first focus area is for the NAMC to deliver on its mandate and core functions. We have a very strong focus on good governance, and for the past 5 years we had 3 clean audits and 2 unqualified audits. And then the second focus area is a viable and efficient agricultural sector generating optimal earnings, and that include local earnings for producers and for export. We do statutory measures, as we said. We do approximately 30 statutory measure investigations per year, but this target will be on the next page. And then we have certain conditions of approval for statutory measures. And a statutory levy is one of the statutory measures, where one of the conditions of approval is that at least 20% of statutory levies being used for transformation. There was a question last week when we discussed this point, and one person asked, where is this at least 20% coming from? Maybe I can say that the first statutory levies in terms of the Marketing Act was promulgated in 2001, more or less. And then we started with 10% of levies collected must be used for transformation. Then we amended it in 2005, saying that approximately 20% being used for transformation of statutory levy income. And with the word approximately, some industries spend way less than 20%. And then in 2019, 18, I think, we changed the transformation guidelines again after we consulted with the industries. And then we decided that at least 20% must be used for transformation. And then we also be more specific that 60% of the transformation funds being used for enterprise development. Okay, this is a long story. And then the third focus area is market access for all market participants. Market, we disregard, maybe next slide. Okay, this is again the first focus area where we talk about for the NAMC to deliver on its mandate and core functions. We strive to have unqualified audit reports. We try to spend the full budget of 100%. We have human capital targets. We have corporate communications targets. And then we have ICT service targets. Next slide, please. There's the targets more specified with the last 3 items for human capital reports. We do it quarterly, as well quarterly for corporate communications and ICT reports. We also compile quarterly reports. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where we look for a viable and for an efficient agriculture sector. First of all, again, with statutory measures. Secondly, we do the status of statutory measures report. This report, I think, is very important. My division is responsible for this report. This gives a summary of all statutory measures promulgated in one report. And we recently compiled the 22 survey. It was adopted by the minister in February. With this survey, we can see that in terms of the latest audited financial statements of levy administrators, we currently collect almost 1 billion rand for all the industries using statutory levies, and that is more or less 20 industries. And then the third bullet in this regard is value chain research that is being done by our MERC division. MERC stands for Markets and Economic Research Center. The last 2 bullets on this page is done by our agriculture trust division, where we compile a status report on agricultural trust. That is more or less the same as the status of statutory measures report. With this report, we provide a summary of where is all agricultural trust with their finances. They receive the money from the former control boards. And lastly, on this page, we are doing a report on transformation. Maybe in this regard, we are currently busy with a new application for statutory measures. And for example, the winter cereal industry, they are collecting levies for breeding seed purposes. And I made a note this morning, They start with this statutory levy in 2016, and until December 2023, they will spend 103 million on transformation. They help farmers. In 2020, they helped 6 farmers. They provide loans interest-free, and that 6 farmers farmed on 490 hectares. In 2021, they supported with loans 55 farmers, and they farm on 2,700 hectares. And in 2022, they supported 65 farmers who farmed on 2,600 hectares with loans, and they don't pay interest on it. And with the loans, they can pay for input cost, wages, and mechanical improvements. This is maybe a good example of what we will see in the next transformation report. Next page, please. This is all the reports that are being compiled by our MERC division. And for example, food price monitor report, they're doing supply and demand estimates reports. It is very good for food safety because they know what say grains being imported and exported and what is the balance by each financial year. And also a number of other reports. Next page, please. There we can see all the reports, and some of them being compiled on a monthly basis and some on a quarterly basis, some on an annual basis. Next page, please. Okay, this is the third and last focus area on market access. For example, they do smallholder farmers linkages to market opportunities, and they develop at least 2 production schemes per year for a specific commodity, for example, red meat. And then they also compile agripreneur reports. Next page, please. Okay, this is the targets for market access. Next page, please. This is the last page to be handled by me. This is the four divisions of the NAMC Secretariat. The first one is agribusiness development. They are responsible for smallholder farmers linkages to markets. And then they will also arrange for agripreneurs training. And then the Agricultural Trust Division, the senior manager there, Punani Nohodo, he's the chairperson of our Transformation Review Committee. They monitor what the industries are doing for transformation by comparing what was budgeted and what was spent, and sometimes they will also go and see the projects. And then there are also the linkage between the minister and ministerial trustees. Then the third division, the MERC division, is doing Section 7 committee reports for the new year. We plan to do a goat Section 7 committee report, and another one is the deciduous food export into Africa Section 7 committee reports, and they are basically doing all the research in the NMC. And lastly, the statutory measures division is where we will be the facilitator of statutory measure applications, and we are not collecting the levies. It is for the relevant commodity organizations to collect the levies. But yeah, and then we also monitor the application of statutory measures by doing the status of statutory measures report, and we do it on an annual basis. The this is where maybe I can stop and give the floor to Irene Mtatu with our Chief Finance Officer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Becker, and good afternoon, Chairperson and members of the committee. All protocol observed. I will take the committee through the last part of the presentation, which talks to our risks, as well as the budget for the new financial year. I will not go through each and everything, but on a high level, what is stated in this presentation is our strategic risks that as organization we are managing, and we felt it adequate because these are one of the drivers for us to be able to achieve the mandate. The first one, as an entity that does research, is a inadequate capacity to support the core function. And what we are doing there, our HR is involved in making sure that we undertake the reskilling based on the budget availability, and also to just ensure that the entity itself is properly capacitated. And all this is dependent also on the funds availability, which part of it is the models that we're exploring for income generation. And the other, you can move to the next slide. The other risks on a high level is the expectation for the NAMC to implement programs or support beyond its mandate. Most often, this is one of the areas that I think our stakeholders out there, they seem to be confused on what is the mandate. So part of the plan that we engage with is the stakeholder engagements, raising awareness of the NAMC mandate. And the other one is the failure to adhere to good governance. I think as an entity in the past, we have been struggling with the irregular expenditure, but I'm happy to report that that is one of the things that we have overcome, and part of it is to raise awareness internally to staff and also make sure that our policies drives that the culture of compliance. And the other one, which is a risk that as an organization we are really trying to manage at all costs, is the budget constraints. So I've already mentioned that we are exploring the models for income generation. We are engaging also our mother department. And the negative audit opinions that we have been addressing some of the findings. Also, I'm happy to report that those are part of the history, because currently with the policies that we have, we are reviewing on regular basis. We are also working on the consequence management. So, and the implementation of the approved delegation of authority framework, as most of the irregular were as a result of non-compliance to that. So those are the things that we have addressed we are addressing, but the majority of them will not appear as the repeat findings. You can move to the next slide. Yes. From the finances, it's business as usual. As you'll see under the 2023-24, our grant for this financial year is 49.7 million. There has just been a slight increase of 2%. So there isn't much expectations of doing anything other than what we have been doing because of the constraints in the financial resources. So we are looking at ensuring that we structure achieving the organization mandate with this the finances that we currently have. Other non-tax revenue, those are the interest and the management fee that we get on some of the projects that we are managing. And our expenses, the most part of it is the compensation of employee, which is basically 70% of the transfer that we've received. And this talks to the budget constraints that I was referring to. So this leaves the organization with 30% for operation and administration expenses.
Please conclude.
Okay, so this is the end. This is the end, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Over to you.
Thank you to NAMC for their presentation, honorable members. We will now open the sessions for questions of clarity and comments. I'm looking out for any hands. Any hands, honorable members? Akhbar officer.
Special person, much. In terms of, thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. In terms of what are you doing in partnership with the CGA in terms of the complaint that citrus growers in industry submitted to the President to intervene on the ongoing trade impasse between South Africa and the European Union with the new regulations? And then, according to what happened in the media, I just want to bring it to your attention that there was, or ask the question that there was a fresh producers, dealers colluded to raise food prices, apparently on a market. The Competition Commission intervened and conducted an investigation. Were you contacted in terms of the possibility of the violation of the Competition Act? And if so, what was your response through your relation with APAC as well? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take that? Apologies.
Any other questions, honorable members? I'm looking for hands. I know it has been a long today, but we are almost there. Any questions? If not, let's then hand over to NAMC for responses.
Scott, do you want to attempt to answer Honorable Visser?
Yeah, Chairperson, maybe I can try. For me, the administrators of statutory measures or the industries, I think they struggle due to a number of hurdles. For example, railway, load shedding, harbors, and so forth. But what I can say is that the Citrus Growers Association currently, they are by far the biggest collector of statutory levies, and they collect approximately 250 million rand to do a number of functions for the citrus industry. Yeah, I think the NMC itself, we are not directly involved regarding the obstacles in the export market. This is my first try to answer the first question. Then regarding this competition, the Competition Act, we are aware that industries must not make available or collect, say, price information. And regarding when it comes to records and returns to collect information, then the Act is clear that the collector of the relevant, say, data or statistics, they receive individual information from a lot of role players, and then they must process the information, and then they could then release the processed information to make sure that dealings by the industries is in line with the Competition Act. Thank you, Chairperson.
If I can just add to that, Honourable Visser, the citrus trade issue is dealt with via the Department of Agriculture. It's obviously a trade issue, so it doesn't sit within the mandate of the NAMC. Obviously, if we get requested to do research or whatever the case is, we will obviously do that, but we will take our cue from the Minister or the department. Obviously, similarly with the Competition Commission, the Agricultural Produce Agents Council regulates local markets, and that's where that is happening. But from time to time, we do get requested by the Competition Commission for inputs and information, which we then share. I hope that clarifies. Thank you very much. Is our chairperson still on the platform?
It seems the chair has been kicked off, but Ndade Matthias, I will give you to go ahead first because your hand was up before mine.
No, you can't allow, you can't be a referee and a player. Can we have Honorable Visser to chair the meeting?
Yes. You made this day very special for me.
Honorable Visser.
Honorable Sam Matiase, you are first. You are first. You will speak first. Matthias. Okay. Matthias, thank you. You can go.
Yeah, that's how I prefer it to be pronounced. Look, thanks, Honorable Visser. I'm happy with you chairing because I was born in a farm where the farm owner was Visser.
Okay, thank you.
The town called Jackersfontein is located on the first farm where your ancestors bought a piece of land from the Creekers.
Okay. Okay, Honorable Sam, you can continue.
Thanks, Honorable Chair, for the opportunity. Look, Honorable Chair, recently we're in Mpumalanga and we're in other provinces. And most of the small-scale livestock farmers and crop farmers have been complaining about lack of access to markets, including infrastructure for same purpose, such as feedlots and abattoirs. And these small-scale farmers are producing, they're able to work the land, rare animals, and all sorts of things. But they then have got no markets to sell their produce. What is the role of the institute or the institution or about creating enabling environment in terms of market accessibility for small-scale farmers who have seemed to lost interest in the sector for a variety of reasons, but amongst them is that they've got no markets to sell their products. Is there any role that they're playing? And if there is, Is there any evidence to back such a claim that they are playing a role in that regard? Thanks, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sam. Okay, Honorable Noko, you're second now. Honorable Noko.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Sorry, my apology. I thought I was unmuted. Chair, sorry, I was just out doing a quick interview. Chair, the question that I have is quite straightforward. NAMC played quite a key role in the development of agriculture and agro-processing plan. With all challenges of load shedding and obviously the EU market the challenges regarding the citrus and so forth, have they done some work to really determine whether, under these conditions, the marketing conditions and obviously the economic condition, whether the AAMP will go ahead smoothly or not? Have the work been done, or are we just carrying on business as usual as if there are no challenges, no threats, no issues around the country and around the globe? Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You're back.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Dr. Masipa. Honorable members, any further questions? If not, let me hand over to NAMC for their responses.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Matthias, in terms of small-scale farmers, it is an area of focus for the NAMC. We look at linking small-scale farmers to the markets. Obviously, the area that needs to be covered is quite wide, and that's not only done by the NAMC, it's also done by the department and the provincial departments of agriculture. Obviously, there's quite a bit of evidence because we report on it in terms of what has been done in the past. I don't have that detail with me, but I'm quite happy to forward that through to you. And there is a strong focus on linking small growers to the market, because that's the only way that they will become sustainable. So that is in particular a focus area. Mr. Masipa, the Honorable Masipa, with regards to the AAMP and the risk attached to it, no, it's certainly not business as usual. And obviously, there's quite a lot of focus that we need to put on it in terms of moving it forward. The specific role of the NAMC is monitoring and evaluation. So obviously, there's been a number of engagement with stakeholders on the AAMP. But obviously, the challenges with specifics with regards to energy, with regards to the ports and logistics that's not working, that is dealt with by the commodity organizations. And obviously, the NAMC is represented on the relevant forums. I'm just going to ask my colleague Skalk if you would like to contribute, or any of the other NAMC members if they're on the platform. Mr. Berger.
Thank you, Chairperson of the NAMC. I think you provided a very good, two good answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'll conclude there.
Thank you, and Dr. Peterson and Dr. Berger for your presentation and responses to the questions posed by honorable members. Honorable members, let me take this opportunity to thank all the entities of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development who took time to appear before the committee today. We note the presentations that were made by the department on the APP of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Commission of Restinguma Mukomoto, the commissioner, but also note the
Mefeser esikhulule sihambe. Dade Matias.
The honorable members, apologies. This load shedding is really challenging for the whole country. And I do apologize for the disturbances that we incurred today. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, honorable members and chair. Thank you.